Welcome. Today, we're taking a closer look at the Washington Quarter, a coin that most people have seen, but very few have truly examined. Hidden behind its familiar design is a fascinating story of history, craftsmanship, and the subtle details that can make one example far more collectible than another. Stay with us, because by the end, you'll understand what experienced collectors look for and why a select few of these quarters stand out from the rest. First coin. The 1967 Washington Quarter often slips through change jars and forgotten collections without attracting much attention. Yet it represents one of the most fascinating chapters in modern American coinage. At first glance, it appears to be an ordinary circulating quarter, but a closer examination reveals that it was produced during an extraordinary period when the United States Mint was struggling to meet overwhelming public demand for coins while battling widespread hoarding driven by rising silver prices. Every detail on this coin tells part of that story, from the missing mint mark to the subtle differences in strike quality that collectors carefully examine today. Before this documentary reaches its conclusion, you'll discover what professionally authenticated examples have brought in the collector market, why only certain pieces command impressive premiums, and which characteristics separate an ordinary circulated coin from the rare survivors that specialists actively pursue. By 1967, America was in the middle of a dramatic transformation in its circulating coinage. Just 2 years earlier, Congress had passed the Coinage Act of 1965, one of the most significant reforms in the history of United States currency. The soaring value of silver had encouraged people to remove older silver coins from circulation, creating severe coin shortages across the country. Vending machines, banks, retailers, and consumers all felt the effects. To restore confidence and keep commerce moving, the Mint introduced a new copper-nickel clad composition for quarters while temporarily eliminating mint marks from circulating coins. Officials hoped that removing mint identifiers would discourage collectors from setting aside coins from specific facilities, allowing more quarters to remain in everyday circulation. As a result, every genuine 1967 Washington Quarter was intentionally struck without a mint mark, regardless of where it was manufactured. Although no mint mark appears on the coin, the 1967 quarters were actually produced at multiple United States Mint facilities operating under centralized authority. Dies were prepared and distributed in a way that prevented collectors from identifying their origin, making 1967 unique within the Washington Quarter series. Combined production exceeded 1.5 billion quarters, making the date one of the most heavily minted in American history. Such enormous output means the average circulated example remains very common today, but quantity alone never tells the complete collecting story. Heavy production schedules often resulted in worn dies, inconsistent strikes, and varying levels of quality control, leaving collectors with a surprisingly wide range of conditions. While millions entered circulation immediately, relatively few escaped decades of wear with fully preserved surfaces, sharp details, and attractive original luster. The design itself connects the coin to a much earlier era of American history. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington created by sculptor John Flanagan, whose design first appeared in 1932 to commemorate the bicentennial of Washington's birth. The profile faces left, surrounded by the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date below. On the reverse, a powerful American eagle spreads its wings while perched on a bundle of arrows symbolizing military strength, framed below by olive branches representing peace. The inscriptions "United States of America," "EPLUBUSUNUM," and "$quarter" complete the classic composition. By 1967, this artwork had already become one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Yet the transition from silver to clad composition gave the familiar design an entirely new physical character. Unlike quarters dated 1964 and earlier, the 1967 issue contains no silver. Instead, it consists of outer layers made from 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. The finished coin weighs approximately 5.67 grams, measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and features a reeded edge with 119 reeds. Looking closely at the edge often reveals the reddish copper core sandwiched between the outer layers, providing one of the quickest ways to distinguish a normal-clad quarter from an earlier silver example. The harder alloy also behaved differently during striking, creating distinctive luster patterns and wear characteristics that experienced collectors use when evaluating originality and preservation. Most 1967 quarters spent years, and often decades, in everyday commerce. They passed through cash registers, vending machines, parking meters, laundromats, and countless pockets before finally disappearing into dresser drawers, piggy banks, or coin jars. Because the date was produced in such large numbers, few people considered saving them when they were new. Ironically, that lack of attention contributed to the scarcity of truly exceptional examples today. Coins that remained untouched in original mint rolls or carefully preserved collections retained vibrant mint luster, crisp details, and clean surfaces, while the overwhelming majority gradually accumulated scratches, contact marks, and circulation where that permanently reduced their collectible quality. Condition is where the collecting landscape changes dramatically. A worn example grading good or very fine generally carries only modest collector interest beyond face value. However, coins reaching mint state grades begin attracting specialists who appreciate their original appearance. In grades such as MS65 or MS66, a sharply struck 1967 quarter with bright, undisturbed luster and minimal contact marks can sell for around $1,250 to $2,300, depending on eye appeal, certification, and current market demand. These values fluctuate over time, reflecting collector competition rather than any guaranteed worth. Professional grading by respected third-party services remains essential because even small differences in preservation can significantly influence market value. Strike quality is another characteristic that experienced numismatists evaluate carefully. During the intense production schedules of the mid-1960s, some dies remained in service longer than ideal, producing coins with softer details around Washington's hair, the eagle's feathers, or the lettering. Others emerged with remarkably crisp definition despite the enormous manufacturing volume. Collectors often seek coins displaying full detail, strong cartwheel luster, and balanced surfaces free from distracting abrasions. Attractive tunning can also enhance desirability when it develops naturally over decades of proper storage, although originality is always more important than dramatic color. Artificially altered surfaces are generally viewed negatively and may reduce both market confidence and collectible value. Among the most exciting discoveries for specialists are genuine mint errors and die varieties from 1967. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, doubled dies, and dramatic die cracks occasionally escaped into circulation, though they represent only a tiny fraction of total production. Authentic examples certified by reputable grading companies often command substantial premiums because of their rarity and strong collector demand. A certified major error or exceptional variety might bring between $2,800 and $4,000 if the error is dramatic, well-preserved, and highly desirable to specialists. Extraordinary auction realizations exceeding those levels have occurred, but such results are typically reserved for unusually rare authenticated errors or elite condition examples rather than ordinary 1967 quarters. Authentication has become increasingly important as technology allows counterfeiters to produce more convincing replicas. Fortunately, genuine 1967 quarters possess measurable characteristics that experts verify during examination. Weight, diameter, thickness, edge appearance, metallic composition, die markers, and microscopic design details all help distinguish authentic coins from deceptive copies. Collectors should be cautious of pieces with unusual surfaces, incorrect coloration, blurry lettering, or suspiciously altered dates. Purchasing certified coins from respected grading services greatly reduces risk, especially when considering higher value examples. Professional encapsulation also preserves the coin while providing independent confirmation of authenticity and grade, giving buyers and sellers greater confidence in the marketplace. Proper preservation plays a critical role in maintaining a coin's long-term desirability. Collectors generally avoid cleaning because even gentle polishing creates microscopic scratches that permanently alter the original surface. Instead, high-quality inert holders, archival flips, or hard plastic capsules provide effective protection from fingerprints, moisture, dust, and environmental contaminants. Coins should be stored in stable temperatures with low humidity and handled only by their edges whenever possible. These straightforward precautions help preserve natural luster and minimize the risk of corrosion or accidental damage, allowing future collectors to evaluate the coin exactly as it has survived through decades of history. Today, the 1967 Washington Quarter stands as a reminder that rarity is rarely determined by date alone. Its historical significance lies in the extraordinary circumstances surrounding its production during America's transition away from circulating silver coinage and the temporary elimination of mint marks. While billions were struck, only a comparatively small number remain in superb original condition or exhibit exceptional mint errors that capture serious collector attention. Auction records demonstrate that verified high-grade survivors and authenticated rare varieties can achieve remarkable prices, but those outcomes depend entirely on professional grading, authenticity, preservation, rarity, and current collector demand. For that reason, every 1967 quarter deserves a careful examination, not because every coin is valuable, but because history has shown that the finest preserved examples tell a story far richer than their 25-cent face value ever suggests. Next coin. At first glance, the 1977 D Washington Quarter seems like the kind of coin millions of Americans handled without a second thought, passing from cash registers to pockets and back into circulation countless times. Yet beneath its familiar appearance lies a story that has steadily attracted the attention of serious collectors, not because every example is rare, but because a surprisingly small number survived with the qualities specialists demand. As this story unfolds, you'll discover why this Denver Mint issue has earned a respected place in modern U.S. numismatics, what characteristics separate an ordinary circulation strike from an exceptional survivor, and what authenticated examples have achieved in the collector market when every important factor aligns. The year 1977 represented a period of relative economic stabilization after several turbulent years in the United States. The nation was still adjusting to the lingering effects of inflation and the energy challenges that had shaped the middle of the decade, while businesses and consumers increasingly relied on coin-operated vending machines, parking meters, transit systems, and everyday cash transactions. Quarters remained one of the most heavily used denominations in circulation, making consistent production a priority for the United States Mint. Unlike the excitement surrounding the bicentennial coinage issued the previous year, the 1977 quarter returned to the standard Washington design, quietly resuming a familiar appearance that many Americans hardly noticed despite the remarkable number entering circulation. Every genuine 1977 D Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark positioned on the obverse to the right of Washington's ribbon and below the word "In God We Trust." Denver played a major role in supplying circulating coinage throughout the western United States, and the facility produced more than 256 million quarters bearing the 1977 date. Although that enormous mintage means the issue is far from rare in worn condition, collectors understand that survival rates tell a much different story than production totals. Vast numbers entered commerce immediately, where decades of daily use gradually erased mint luster, softened design details, and left countless contact marks, making pristine examples considerably scarcer than the original production figures might suggest. The physical specifications of the coin reflect the standard established after the Coinage Act of 1965. Each piece was struck on a copper-nickel-clad planchet consisting of outer layers made from 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. The finished quarter weighs approximately 5.67 grams, measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and features a reeded edge with 119 reeds. When viewed from the edge, the reddish copper core is often visible between the outer layers, immediately distinguishing the coin from the pre-1965 silver quarters that many Americans had already removed from circulation years earlier. This durable clad construction allowed the mint to produce coins capable of withstanding heavy commercial use, while reducing dependence on increasingly expensive precious metals. Artist John Flanagan's classic design continued to define the Washington Quarter in 1977, preserving an image that had first entered circulation in 1932. The obverse presents a dignified left-facing portrait of George Washington, accompanied by the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," the date below, and the Denver Mint mark. The reverse features a heraldic eagle standing proudly upon a bundle of arrows, with olive branches extending beneath as symbols of peace, balancing military preparedness. Above the eagle appears United States of America, while EPLUBUS rests between the bird's wings and quarter-dollar curves below. Although familiar to generations of Americans, the design continues to attract collectors because every sharply struck detail reflects the precision achieved during the coining process. Producing hundreds of millions of quarters demanded remarkable efficiency inside the Denver Mint. Long strips of clad metal were rolled to precise thickness before blanking presses punched out circular planchets. These blanks passed through annealing furnaces to soften the metal, were cleaned, upset to raise protective rims, and finally struck under tremendous pressure between hardened steel dies. Because dies gradually wore with extended use, not every coin emerged with identical sharpness. Some display bold hair detail on Washington and crisp feather definition on the eagle, while others reveal softer features caused by die fatigue or minor striking inconsistencies. These subtle manufacturing differences have become important points of study for advanced collectors, evaluating quality far beyond simple circulation wear. After leaving the mint, the overwhelming majority of 1977 D quarters entered everyday commerce almost immediately. They jingled through wallets, laundromats, grocery stores, arcade machines, and gas stations before eventually disappearing into collections, jars, or bank vaults. Since most Americans viewed them as ordinary pocket change, relatively few people preserved fresh mint rolls compared with earlier commemorative issues or silver coinage. Ironically, that lack of attention explains why locating examples with blazing original luster, nearly flawless surfaces, and outstanding eye appeal has become increasingly difficult decades later. The coin's common origin makes truly exceptional preservation far more meaningful than the date itself. Professional grading plays a decisive role in determining collector desirability. A heavily circulated example generally commands little premium because so many remain available. However, certified mint state coins with minimal abrasions and strong original brilliance occupy a completely different market. Depending on certification, eye appeal, strike quality, and current collector demand, an authenticated MS-66 specimen may sell in the neighborhood of $1,480 to $2,150. These figures are not guaranteed values for every coin bearing the same date and mint mark. Instead, they illustrate how condition, originality, and independent grading dramatically influence collector interest, with even slight differences in surface preservation separating ordinary examples from highly desirable ones. Collectors also pay close attention to luster, strike characteristics, and surface quality because these attributes often determine whether a coin advances into the highest certified grades. Original cartwheel luster should flow evenly across the fields when the coin is rotated beneath a light. Contact marks on Washington's cheek, the open fields, or the eagle's breast frequently limit grades, even when no actual circulation wear is present. Naturally toned examples displaying subtle gold, champagne, or pale blue peripheral colors may appeal strongly to specialists, provided the toning developed naturally over decades of careful storage. Artificial color enhancement, polishing, or cleaning almost always reduces collector confidence and can significantly diminish market value despite an otherwise attractive appearance. The 1977 D quarter is not widely known for major die varieties, and no universally recognized variety has achieved the fame of certain earlier Washington quarter issues. Nevertheless, legitimate mint errors do exist, including off-center strikes, clipped planchets, struck-through errors, and occasional dramatic die cracks that escaped quality control. Because these pieces are genuinely scarce, professionally authenticated examples attract considerable attention whenever they appear at auction. Depending on the severity of the error, overall preservation, and collector demand, certified examples have sold within a range of roughly $2,950 to $3,900. Truly extraordinary results are reserved for rare, well-documented error coins or exceptionally preserved mint state pieces rather than ordinary circulation strikes, underscoring the importance of authentication before assuming any unusual coin carries substantial value. Authentication has become increasingly important as counterfeit technology continues to improve. Fortunately, genuine examples possess consistent specifications that experts verify through careful examination. Weight, diameter, metallic composition, edge appearance, die characteristics, and microscopic design details all provide clues that help distinguish authentic coins from deceptive copies or altered pieces. Collectors should remain cautious of suspiciously bright surfaces, altered mint marks, unusual lettering, or coins offered without reliable provenance when unusually high prices are involved. Independent certification by established grading services remains one of the most effective safeguards, providing confidence in authenticity while preserving the coin inside a tamper-evident holder for future generations. Today, the 1977 D Washington quarter represents much more than a common circulating coin from the late 20th century. It reflects an era when the United States Mint had fully transitioned into the clad coinage age, while continuing one of the nation's longest-running coin designs. Although hundreds of millions were produced, the population of truly elite survivors remains surprisingly limited because so few escaped circulation with immaculate surfaces and exceptional strike quality. Auction history consistently demonstrates that authenticated, high-grade examples and verified mint errors attract the strongest competition, while ordinary circulated pieces remain readily available. That contrast perfectly illustrates one of the most enduring lessons in numismatics. Lasting collector value is determined not by the date alone, but by authenticity, preservation, rarity, originality, grading, eye appeal, and the enduring enthusiasm of collectors who recognize excellence when they see it.